Okay, here's my effort to revive something of what I did studying at the university, user interface design 13 years ago with Jonathan Grudin. So he's now a researcher at Microsoft and had back then tons of cool videos on how future user interface could have been. And those videos was, today they are 25 years old. And everything you have seen today that everybody talks about is new was actually already made 25 years ago. You probably know that. So if you have been to the computer industry, and I will take you through some slides and show that, then you also might see what would be intermediate, which is actually doable with the tools we now provide, which we haven't had just 2-3 years ago, because of we are now detached from the desktop metaphor. So I'll go through that, and I will show some samples just to give you an idea and give some tips on how this can look like. So just some history and little bit web user interfaces, which everybody, oh, it's the biggest cool thing, but we see now that this is really, really changing. And also a little bit about the tooling you can use, but also it's a disclaimer in here. It's totally simplified. We have 30 minutes, and user interface obviously is more complicated than doing that in 30 minutes. So don't expect it to be exhausting and precise. Also, it's for educational purposes only, because then I can use every piece of information I find on the internet and just quote that I used it for educational purposes. So it's nothing in here that I'm doing no sale in here. It will be nothing like I promote any product. I will just show you samples of what you need to regard from an engineering point of view. But just as you also can see of my background, I've just mentioned it because there's a lot of things, but it basically says, when I started in the computer industry, I worked with phone switches, which was back then huge, large, simple computers. And the interface was, just when I started in the phone company, it was just a keyboard or a small 9-dial thing. And we were just replacing the dial you switch. That was the user interface, and you can take the phone. And from that, I'm kind of grown to the different things. For instance, I have used IBM 3270 Terminal a lot. You remember that down there? I can see you nodding. And actually, it's 7 times more fast to use than a graphical user interface. People don't know that. That was the IBM sales pitch back then. Because you can use the 104 keys, and that's much faster than using one key with a mouse. So you had that was the evolution. It went from paper, and you just use the typewriter, and you get this kind of screen, and it was a copy of a form. Have you heard that? It was actually, they copied the, what do you call it in English? Hullkort? Punch card, thank you. So they copied the punch card, and they made a screen of it. That's basically what they did. They had no idea what to make of a user interface, so they had to evolve and understand how do users interact with the screen. And they used what they knew was a punch card. Think about that. Punch card computing. I remember my father worked on sorting punch card as a part-time job at the university, and I was a kid, so I unsorted them. He get a lot of paid for that. Don't tell it to anyone. And yeah, it's true. And then in 1973, Xerox PARC, a copy machine vendor, they made this excellent innovation with a graphical desktop. They had a mouse that was actually invented 20 years before. But this graphical environment, they had this desktop, which you had kind of paper folders, and you had papers, and the things you saw on the screen was what you see, what you get. That was the whole idea. And this is now almost 40 years old. The only thing was that the Xerox start was so slow that nobody bought it. It was, you have, kind of, if you know what it is to wait for an application, this was not waiting some seconds, it's kind of waiting for some minutes to everything to update. Because they did everything they could to stretch the CPU and the graphic performance, but they did everything right too, kind of. They used object-oriented language, they used networking with the computer, and they used this graphical user interface. Even Steve Jobs noted that they didn't fix the first when they made the Apple. They only got the graphical user interface. The object-oriented things and the network, they forgot. So it took 30 years before that was fixed. And now we have touch. Everybody talks about touch. Oh, we have touch on phones. I have a touch phone. Really nice thing. I will not mention the operating system for educational reasons. And you have this touch, and you can use it easily. The thing is that it was not this device that was first, or on a long shot. It was all kind of terminals buying tickets, train tickets, or doing some operation on a copy machine or something else. So touchscreen was used everywhere else because you needed a large computer to run the whole thing. It was not, the Moore's law hadn't really hit in yet. So this is a cash register used a lot. And I think the most deployed touchscreen on the planet maybe is still cash register, even if you sell a lot of computers. And then also what happened, not only touch is coming, but you also have the web interface that really exploded, I will say, 10 years ago, maybe 12. I remember I started first using internet in 1993 at the university, and we get this browser called NSA or whatever. Do you remember the name of it? Mosaic, yeah. And it was, and I've used it for 2 years, and my sister came along and said, have you surfed? Surf? What is surfing? Oh, using this Mosaic. Oh, I used it for 2 years. And still it took 5 years before it went commercial and understood by their businesses. But the thing is that the user interface is blazingly simple. It's not really easy to get anything good out of it. Really, you have to work really hard to render a good user interface and user experience. So what has happened is that we try to fix the technology. We try to put JavaScript, we try to use HTML and in ways, and we try to speed up the runtime environment. It's an interpreter that runs in the web browser environment. And then you can maybe make a magnifying glass or have some graphics or some buttons that may look a little bit cooler than the first version of the web interface that we had back 10 years ago. But it's still pretty rudimentary compared to what you can enable on the desktop. So what we try to do, and here's the story, we try to do information, that is the text-based interface. We try to do touchscreen, which is totally different, and we often try to combine that with internet information that is a service, and you might store it a little bit locally and a little bit on the internet. And you use, as we have seen, some engine for that. We use this Webkit. You have a couple of others from other browsers, and they run the application for you. But it's still not really, for an end user, want to have the email or have game or have online banking on their phone or on the touchscreen. It does not really fly. It's a lot of things to consider using this technology. It's limiting. So what I'm going to talk about and summarize this presentation is what I call hybrid internet applications. And we think, and I think, Knut thinks that this is the future. And I will show you why and what you might need to consider it. First of all, what you do, you have a rich UI. It's no limitations. You can download images from the internet, or you can download map information, and you can run everything together with a rich, not interpreted, but you run it directly on the local CPU, because you need speed and agility to handle the burden of computing the complex UI which the end user might want to use to be relevant in the marketplace. If you are a student, you're going to apply for a job, you are maybe studied for 3 years or 4 years, maybe even 5, and you apply for a job in a company, and they expect today really, really nifty and good-looking applications, and much, to be honest, it's really hard to run that Ajax, how we label it, HTML and JavaScript. It's really a burden to run that on the electronic and computer devices, because it uses so many clock cycles. You really, really need to go and run the application natively on the device, because it might not only have more than 300 megahertz. Can you see that? That the device you have might not run your stuff if you do it in a virtual environment. And also, you have the touch effect. You need to consider how the application are used, because the application switches. So if I turn on the screen here, and it has an accelerator attached to it, and I turn it, and after a while, not long distance, it flips, and you always have it, like you can see all the menus and such. It's different on different phones, but that's the general idea. And how to design that is also pretty complex. It's not done, especially if you're doing C++ and Q, it's not easy to flip an application, because you have to move the different elements so they place themselves on the screen easily for your use. I have a just short demo to show a little bit about that, because this is kind of calculator. Not everybody makes a calculator. I think this is the most produced application on the planet, together with the clock. Everybody makes a clock. Have you made a clock? Okay, you're not programmers. I was just joking, you don't need to answer that. So I made a calculator when I was at the university, of course, and here's my effort. But a good thing, because we're going to now just press a button. It could be an accelerator controlling this application, and we can turn it around in the direction you are. And this is really, really, and you can do it in just a constant movement, or you can do it in 4, 8 angles, and you can do whatever you want, given that you're either a really good software programmer or you have good tools, or both. But I love this, you know, yay! We're going to have more demos like this later. I will show you where you might visit and which talks you should attend to get some more examples that we have made. I think this is one of the most exciting things. It rotates, yay! And then we also have the animation attached to the application. We don't only have the animation, we have the touch to it. And I will just run a demo, and it's a mice, so think about the mouse as a finger. And here we have downloaded some images from the internet, for instance, wildlife. And it nicely plays itself out. It's QML, which we have used for this demonstration. Isn't it beautiful? And having this application, you have big buttons, so you can, this is not a touch thing here. So you can press there on your touch screen, if you have this on a netbook with touch screen, for instance, or a phone, and you can then navigate easily with your finger. And you can also add new searches, for instance, which I kind of have I always do this, and see what's happened, you know. See if people have done something fun, and they haven't, so sorry for that. Point is that you get these animations, you get these different activities that blends in together with rotation, touchscreen, maybe multi-touch, and you want your application to be as easy to both make and produce and to use as possible, which is totally different to maybe a web application, which is different from the usual desktop application. The menus are not there anymore. The desktop as we know it is not there anymore. It's more like you're navigating the whole experience with your finger, or 2 fingers. Can you see that the change that we have been living in for the last 40 years or 30, it's changed, and that's expected. And it's expected next year that the sales figures on smartphones will be preceding all PCs sold on the planet and made on the planet together. And next year after that, they expect also the the cable TV set-top boxes. They will have new user interfaces too. You will have car computers. And all those things will, not all of those, but many of those will have a touchscreen experience. They will not do the usual desktop start menu, go through levels of menu, and you have to use as I often say, use a half a day to get to your stuff. I want to read my email now, bang. Because you are so used to the easiness of using a touchscreen. That's the future, I suspect. And then you also need tooling, and here, sorry for being a little bit commercial here, but then you need different tooling than we have historically had. For instance, with Qt, what we have been really great at is to make the application development look like Windows on Windows, look like Mac on Mac, and you program once and you get the same result. You can use the application natively on Linux and Mac. Think how cool that is. We read internal stuff inside of the Windows 7 platform, and we reflect that back to the UI. So when you're using a Qt application, it looks like a Windows 7 application. And it has the same speed as a native application. It's programmed in C++. But basically, it's built on 37 years old technology. And here we have all this new stuff, these devices and car computers and TV set-top boxes, cable boxes, even ordering system of groceries in refrigerators in Japan is made with Qt. So you click, 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 buy, and then the guy, after half an hour or whatever, comes along with the thing in the box. Yes. I want that. I want the automatic vacuum cleaner, and I want this kind of buying the groceries on my. I'm single. I need that. Okay. Those use cases are there. So what we see is for a developer to really make this happen, we need some vehicle to make animation really easy that you don't need to think about it. It has to be a state machine because things moves around and starts there, goes there, and it will have a lot of bling. It will look nice. It will fade in and out. It will move around, do a lot of exciting things, and you don't want to use hours after hours ordering those pieces around. So what we said, to fix this, okay, we need declarative UI, something new. So we made Qt Quick. That is a declarative language which you can address functionality in Qt. You know this already, don't you? So my summary here is pretty simple, is that since you are here at DevDays and we have more in-depth introduction to these techniques and technologies, we had hoped that you consider these talks. The top one is this introductionary. It gives you an overview of different technology. And this is innovation. It explores how those technologies can be applied making applications. For instance, meet Qt Quick. You get an introduction to what Qt Quick is. Or you need to think differently compared to the computer desktop and even the web design, which you have been teaching the students the last 10 years. You need to think about small user interfaces, maybe with touch input or with some stylus, some simple mice, maybe just 9 buttons that you press on. And also Qt Webkit, which also is relevant because you take internet content into your application and you still use internet as a service embedded in your rich application. Or it runs some JavaScript for you. And then we need to think differently maybe when it comes to prototyping, because this tool is so forceful and you can express a lot that you didn't do before. So you can use that rapid user interface prototyping with Qt and work together with the designer, which was really, really hard before. You made it in Flash, and then the C++ programmers looked at the Flash application and they tried to emulate that into C++. And they lost a lot of things on its way, okay? So what we have seen is that you can use Qt, you can just embed the designer's advice directly in the code, and you can extend with all the exceptions, as we know in a use case we have, when using the actually original prototype into our application. This is really exciting stuff. And then see how that works all together when bridging application between the web and native. And for the students' part, this is animations, effects, and bling. And they get excited, and we will have full courses, I promise you. I don't know if this is 5, but I'm told by the guy from Aalborg that everybody's excited about mobile development. He has full courses. Is that right? Yeah, okay. Okay, questions and answers, please. I can put back this one if somebody was writing. And this is just suggestions, but I will, if I was allowed to, I will go there, but I have to be boot doing a lot. I will take, especially this one, yay, and this one. I will be obviously there. I was loud and clear. Okay. Thank you. Back to Hannah.